What is up, guys? This is Pinzo back with another video today, and what I have for you guys is my phase patch tier list. Okay, I am putting this one out. I haven't put out a tier list in a little bit because I just, not a lot was changing while they were just kind of like minor nerf and carry items. Now that we've got phase, we've got, we got some more item changes with this one as well. I figured I'd put out a tier list for you guys. If something wild changes, I'll let you guys know. But I figured that I would get one out. I'm not going to put one out every patch, but on patches where they actually do like change a lot of stuff, I don't mind putting one out. So we're going to jump right into this. This is phase patch. I believe it's 0.6. I think they update, like there's been some hot fixes, so it's like 0.6.2, but it's the phase patch. So just before we get started, S tier is mega broken. This is like the best characters in the game. Pick these every game if you want to win. A plus, very solid. If you guys are playing like comp of any kind, these are picks that probably aren't getting banned. Pickable every game. That kind of thing, but still really, really good. A is like very solid, good characters. B is like situational to me. Like that's what I would put in B. Like you can pick them, but they're probably not good unless certain criteria are met. C, kind of bad characters, and then D would be like unplayable. So that's my thought process before we get into this. Some heroes I will specify whether or not I'm placing them in certain roles and whether or not I'm placing them based on competitive or based on like solo queue matches. So as we go, that'll make more sense. We're gonna jump right into this. Before we do, if you guys go on to enjoy the content, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of the list down below. Let me know if I placed people too high, too low. I'm always curious what the community thinks. So let's jump into this. Starting us off, Countess. I'm going to put Countess in B. I think she's highly situational, decent jungler. I would play her in mid or solo most of the time. Okay into Sevarog in the solo lane. If you play her mid, you're going to get poked out. If you need someone on your team to play for late game, or if your whole team comp is playing for late game, he scales maybe the best out of any character in the game even. Where late game, after 30 minutes, even like an 0-5 Countess is still going to one-shot people, right? That's just kind of how the character works. So after 30 minutes, she becomes a real character. Her jungle clear is actually not that bad. Start your Q on red buff, and then you actually hit level 2, and then you can get your right click. Now you clear decently. I think she's good in a couple roles. Very like, you want to last pick this character. She's very counterable. Good counter pick. Crunch. Crunch is like an A+ character for me. Plays jungle, plays solo, really good in solo lane, shuts down Sevarog is the big thing. In the jungle, just a solid bruiser. They've nerfed his clear enough to where he's not like OP clear now, right? Still clears very, very well, don't get me wrong. He's not broken in the clear department. Very solid solo laner. Decker, probably the best support right now, I'd say. She's very strong. She sets up kills from halfway down the lane. With her stun, it's really easy. If you have a Richter jungle or something like that on your team, she sets up kills like no other support really does. Cage is a really strong ability. She has lots of crowd control. She has wave clear. She has mobility, so if you build her tanky, not only do you take no damage, but you can also jump out of damage. Really, really strong character, hard to kill, lots of setup, lots of good CC. Get good at Decker if you guys want to win games and support. Drongo's a tough one, man, because I think that they've nerfed this character like 5 times. All right, like they've nerfed his silence many times. They've nerfed his cooldowns on Boomerang. They gave him some cooldowns on Rad rounds. They nerfed his ultimate a little bit. I think I'm still gonna land him in a solid A tier, and the reason for this is because I don't think he's situational. I think you can pick this character every single game and get away with it. He still has mobility. He has the best wave clear out of all the carries. He has mobility on his ultimate. He has safety with his silence. He does a tiny bit less damage. He split pushes just as well as any other carry. Really just a solid character, right? His kit is gonna let him be good even if they nerf his numbers really far, just because he's safe. He has mobility. He pushes waves really well. It leads into him being a really good character. Fang Mao. This is a tough one because you've kind of seen this resurgence of assassins recently, and it's where does Fang Mao fit in that? I think I'm gonna put him in A tier. I think he's decent. If you're going for the Malady sort of build, like Malady Painweaver, then he's good. He comes online, like once you get that second item online, he's kind of like a Kalari, where that second item power spike is really, really strong. but at the same time, he just the map doesn't let him get around as much as he wants to, right? And now that tanks are a little bit better, you're seeing a lot of tanks get played, and he doesn't do as well into those tanks late game. Early game, he's actually pretty good into tanks, especially in the solo lane. Good, he's a counter pick into Sevarog, that kind of thing, where you can play this character solo lane. I would recommend playing him in the jungle. If I'd say he's like a B tier solo laner and an A tier jungler. You can play him every game. If you're better than your opponents, you're gonna win. Mechanically, if you're better, you're gonna win. Faye. So Faye is, a lot of people would put Faye like unplayable because of how many cleanses are in the game. I don't think she's unplayable. I'm gonna put her in B tier. And again, situational. I think she is team comp dependent. If your team has a lot of crowd control, Faye is really good. If your team has no crowd control outside of Faye ultimate, Faye is really bad. Because if you only have Faye ultimate as CC, you are going to get reclamationed every single time. It is too hard in solo queue to play around that cooldown. If you are playing in competitive, you can play Faye a little more often. I would say Faye's maybe A tier in like a scrim environment, okay? But in your solo queue games, I'm going to put her in B because no team, like you as Faye can play around the reclamation cooldown, but no team is going to play around that reclamation cooldown. So you just kind of, like, it's not very good, period. It just isn't very good. Because you're going to get cleansed every time. If you have a lot of other crowd control, if you have a Rampage and a Richter and maybe even a Sevarog or something like that, right? You have other things that can force out Liberator and maybe even Reclamation, right? Now Faye looks a little better because you're not going to get cleansed every time. But that's what it's one of those characters that if you have more CC, it makes her CC better. Gadget. I think Gadget's pretty bad, actually. I'm going to put her situational because the only reason you ever play this character is if you really need to scale to late game, but safely, right? So Gadget, early game, pretty mid. The only upside to Gadget's early game is the fact that she can clear safely from her tower line, which is pretty bonkers. But she doesn't like do much, right? Like a Gadget at 12 minutes has a Q that hits for 300 and a right click that hits for 200 if you stand in it for 2 seconds, right? Like, this character, she just doesn't bring quite as much as, say, like a Gideon or a Howie, right? So I'm going to drop her down a little bit. I don't think, like, C tier being kind of like bad characters, I don't think she's quite down there. Like, if you are playing, like, just a super safe comp, you're not contesting any objectives until 15 minutes, maybe this character gets played. But outside of that, I think she's fairly low. Gideon. Let's see. This character is a little bit tough because I think in casuals, like in solo queue, I think he's S tier. If you guys are playing scrim environment, competitive stuff like that, I think he's A plus. I'm gonna leave him in S because I think he's very, very strong. This character has gotten nerfed and changed a lot. At the end of the day, what this character has is essentially, right, he has an ultimate that does 2,000 damage is what he has. What more do I need to say, right? Obviously, it's cancelable if you're playing against a team with heavy CC. You guys need to build True Silver Bracelet. I would go True Silver second most games. You can go the Megacosm route or you can go the Combustion route. I think both are very good. I would have like Megacosm late, like if you're going Combustion first, go Megacosm later in the build. Going Megacosm first, you actually don't need a Combustion. But both builds are good on this character. Late game, you just portal high, use your ult, it shreds. Your right click Q combo is 60% of Squishy's health, 80% of Squishy's health late game, right, with Prime. Really good character. Just, you can solo carry on this character out of the mid lane. Grux. I'm going to put Grux in C tier. I was going to put him in B tier because he's potentially situational, but I really don't think there's a situation where you should pick this character right now. I will say, and we'll talk about this a little bit later at the end of the list, I think there is one team comp that Grux can fit into, but you literally need to draft like a perfect 5-team comp, and that's not going to happen very often. So I think Grux is pretty bad. The reason for this, he has no mobility. His engage sucks. You have to walk at the enemy team, right? If you think of the other supports or the other solo laners and why they're good, it's because they have ranged crowd control and or mobility to get onto the enemy team. Grux doesn't have that. If he gets on you, by all means, he's a threat, right? But the way that everyone in this game can backpedal while doing damage, right? Mages can throw out abilities while backpedaling. There's no movement penalty. Carries can auto attack while backpedaling. backpedaling and the movement penalties not like atrocious. You know, it just leads to Grux getting kited a lot, right? Like this character either needs a longer dash, or maybe his Q needs to be a tiny bit further, or he needs something else, right? Like this character, his engage is bad. If you're good at playing walls, like playing around the jungle walls late game, you can set up some cheeky ambushes and maybe get some cheeky kills. But other than that, I think this character is pretty bad. Howie, this is the part where this is scrim environment, right? Are you playing competitive or are you playing solo queue? Because in solo queue, this is how I would order these characters, but in scrims, I would order them this way. I think Howie is more valuable in a competitive environment, but I think Gideon's more valuable in a solo queue environment. Howitzer, the reason being, Howitzer's mine is OP. I don't think anyone's really going to argue with me on that one. Uh, if you have a team playing around it, you can call it out, right? And when that boot mine comes out, that's a kill every time, right? The difference is that in solo queue, you're not killing that target every time, right? Even like boop right click Q, it's not a quite 100-0, right? It's not quite there. Whereas Gideon, right? Gideon brings a little bit more safety than Howitzer, just because Portal is literally free. Obviously, Howie's still pretty safe, but Gideon just portals to tower line and he's out. Gideon right click Q, really really reliable, like big burst damage, reliable, hits multiple people. Howitzer, you're really not hitting multiple people with your Q most of the time. Like yes, it's AoE, but it's small. You know, you're not really hitting multiple people with it. So I in solo queue, I think if you want to win all of your games, play Gideon. If you want to win 90% of your games, play Howitzer. Your ult delete squishies, he's still really strong. Really good character. Kallari, I think I'm gonna put Kallari in A tier. I think she's good. I think she's very comparable to Fang Mao. The difference between these two characters is that you have to know how to move around the map better as Kallari, because you have to be able to avoid wards. You have to be able to know where your lanes are pushed up and where they aren't, and when you can walk through lanes and when you can't. Your pathing on this character has to be pristine late game. In the mid game, you get 2 items, 3 items. You just delete enemy carries for the next 5 minutes, and that's how you play this character. She's really good. Carries can't kill you in that like mid game, right? Carries don't have enough damage. You have enough damage to kill them. You just run at them, they die. Good job. Chimera, I think Chimera is B. I think he's mid. He's situational. I don't know when. I don't know exactly when you would want this character. I think he's decent into Rampage. I think he's decent into Richter. Other than that, I think this character is just like he's okay. He got some clear buffs in the last patch, but I don't think it helped him enough. Bellica. I think I'm going to put Bellica in A+, which is probably not where most people would place her. I think most people would probably call her an A tier character. The reason Belle's an A+ is because she's good in multiple roles, is really why I'm going to put her up here. I think this is one of like 2 characters in the game right now that is actually like a top tier hero in multiple roles, right? She's very good in support. I would say she's like a top 3 support. She's very good in mid. I would say she's a top 3 mid. I think she's very good in both roles, very, like, has a lot of setup. Your stun is really, really good. It's ranged. It comes out really fast. It comes out, like, it literally comes out frame run one. I mean, like, you can't get interrupted out of it. Your bomb is OP. You can't run out of mana. You can give up river control all game on this character, and you're never out of mana. Your ultimate is a delete button late game. It just hits so hard. And, yeah, I think she's really strong. Murdoch. I think I'm going to put Murdoch in A tier. Yeah, this is the one carry that I could potentially move up to A+. I actually think I'm going to leave him here because I do think I'd rather have a Murdoch most games than a Drongo. Just brings a tiny bit more damage, still a decent amount of mobility, more utility. His ultimate is really, really strong. If you have crowd control across the map, you just snipe whenever someone gets CC'd and you add 300 damage to that gank. Gives you free assists in the mid game. Really strong character. I think he's probably the best carry right now, just one step above Drongo. Muriel. You would have to draft a crazy team comp around Muriel, I think, to make her work right now. I don't know exactly what it would be. Like you almost need a Chimera on your team because he can heal while he's shielded. Rampage is pretty good with Muriel. I just don't know exactly what team comp I would want with this character. She just doesn't she doesn't slot into any team, right? You do kind of have to build a team around her, and I'm just not exactly sure what I would want with her right now. Global ult is obviously still really good. Late game, this character is very strong. But I just don't know exactly when I like her laning phase is fairly weak compared to the supports that are good right now. I just don't know when I would want her. Narbash, same thing. Just like a good character, you're forced to go True Silver Bracelet, which sucks, right? True Silver on support, it means you're getting an item that gives you almost no stats. And as support, literally the only thing that matters is stats. So yeah, I don't know. Like I a lot of the times on Narbash, I'm just kind of forgoing True Silver Bracelet right now, which sucks because you never ever get your ultimate off. Um, Even with True Silver, you maybe get it off 70% of the time, not 100%. I don't know. It feels kind of bad to build it because it has no stats. Like there are a lot of other items that I'd rather want, like Crystal Tier, even Tainted Totem, that kind of stuff that is just kind of has the stats that I want. I don't know. I don't know when I would want this character. You'd have to build a team comp specifically for Narbash, I think. Rampage, probably the best jungler right now. Just really solid. 2 second stun, good clear, unkillable in the ultimate, peaks mid game. If as long as you're getting active around the 20-minute mark and you're just like making things happen, you need to force fights around that time while you have your ultimate up at between like 15 and 20 minutes. Rampage is unkillable in his ultimate. So as long as your build isn't trash, then you can run at the enemy duo lane, you can run at their mid lane, or just force fights, take objectives. Really strong character. Richter, probably the best multi-role character in the game right now. I was talking about it with Bellica. Richter plays jungle and support, I think both very well. You can put him in the off lane, but I really wouldn't recommend it. I think in the jungle, you're really strong. Your level 1 clear doesn't suck anymore. It's actually like passable now. You can keep up with the clear of these other junglers. You have a lot of setup for your team. Hook is obviously OP. His ultimate's really strong. He has a silence as well, move speed out of his E. Just a really, really solid character. If you're playing this in support, you just have to position a little better. You don't have mobility. Keep in mind you stun yourself every time you go for a hook, essentially is what happened, right? Right, you can't move, you can't do anything while you hook. So just be careful. You have to know your timing windows, but still a good character. Sevarog, probably the best solo laner right now. One of the few tanks right now that is like borderline unkillable late game. You really have to 5-man this guy to kill him. That's the only way. Other than that, I think he's decent, right? He's counter pickable in lane, but again, if you get to the 30-minute mark, then he just wins, right? He just has more health than everyone. He still gets damage because his damage scales with his passive. Just a good character. Don't build like trash and you just can't get killed. So your items will kill people for you. Sparrow. I'm going to put Sparrow in B tier. I think she's situational. If you play her with Muriel, she's good. If you don't play her with Muriel, I think she's kind of bad. Other than that, she's Sparrow, right? Late game, you press R, you press Eviscerator, you kill everyone, or you get jumped on and you insta-die, and that's GG, right? Like, those are your 2 fights as Sparrow. There are 2 fights to take on Sparrow. One where you get a pentakill, and one where you die first and your team loses the game. So, good luck playing Sparrow. If you're really good at the game, you can do it. Steel. I think Steel's A+. I lied. I think I'm going to put him A. And I'm only putting him A because I think I would rather have any of these other characters than a Steel. I wouldn't play him solo lane. He gets shit on in the solo lane. You will never farm anything. You have 0 pressure in the solo lane. Just not worth it. Like, I think Richter is maybe the only solo lane matchup you could play him into, but even then, like, you're just going to lose. Support, I think he's very strong. If you can learn how to position, use your fog walls, rotate around the map, ult late game, use rift walkers properly, all that kind of stuff leads to Steel being a pretty good support. In the jungle, I think he's very mid. I don't know when you would want him in the jungle. He's going to get outfarmed by everyone. You're going to get perma invaded, and you're going to be like level 10 at 25 minutes. So I wouldn't really play him in the jungle. In support, I think he's A tier. Revenant. I'm gonna put Rev in A tier. I think Rev is good. If you're good at using Revenant ult, this character is cracked. If you're bad at using Revenant ult, this character is dog shit. If you find yourself dying constantly on Rev, it's because you're Rev ulting incorrectly. If you are Rev ulting 1 HP targets just for the bounty, it is only worth it if that person is like 3-0. If that person has had less than 3 kills since their last death, like if they are on less than a 3 kill streak, you do not ult for bounties. For the love of God, stop ulting for bounties, okay? I know that carry players just kind of go monkey brain when they see low health targets while they're playing Rev because they just want that passive bounty. It's not worth it. You have one form of safety on this character, and it's 8 seconds of 1v1ing someone, right? So if you're playing Revenant late game, right, and your team is losing a fight or your team is diving, right, you need to ult someone if you can't do damage. That's my point. If your team is shooting someone that you can't hit, take someone else out of the fight. That's all you got to do. Use your ult to reposition. You have 8 seconds where you probably can't die as long as you're ulting the right person. If you ult an enemy tank or even like an enemy mid laner and then just space out, right? You have 8 seconds where you can't die. That's how you should be playing this character. Shinbi, solid. She's good. Counterpick to Sevarog in the solo lane. Decent jungler if you're playing for late game. Other than that, she's fine. She's kind of unkillable late game, but you have to get there. If you're playing Shinbi early game, you just have to make sure your team knows they can't do anything until like 12 minutes. You can't do any objectives. You can't really gank because your gank is really weak. You need like 2 items online for this character to become a character, but then she comes out swinging. Kira. I think this character has some interactions that when people figure them out, they will think this character is good. I'm gonna put her in B tier. I think she's probably the worst carry right now. Like I think I'd rather have a Sparrow than a Kira. I don't think she's trash by any means. I think that people like I think you have to be twice as good at Kira as you do at any other carry to make this character good. Her ult goes through walls. Her ult is not a projectile, it is an AoE. Steel wall does not block Kira ult, nor do walls on the map, just so you guys know. It's something that like people need to figure out that one. Your Q now does physical damage, so you get to apply penetration to it, which is fine. Like before it did magical damage, which is, that also sort of dodges prots, but it's not the same way as penetration. She's good with on-hit builds, she's good with crit builds. She's just not quite as good as these other characters. She does have safety in lane, but that dash late game isn't going to save you. In lane, the dash is really good for getting you out. Late game, it's not going to do anything. So I think she's kind of down here. And then FaZe. This is the new character. This is what I wanted to talk about with Grux. I think FaZe is A tier. I think she's solid. There are 2 playstyles for FaZe, and it depends on your team comp. Playstyle 1 is basically build all of the support items. I'm talking Requiem, Marshall, Tainted Totem, any support items, right? And play in the back of the fight and pull people out. I think that playstyle is okay. It can work. You can play kind of that safety net phase. It's kind of just playing like a worse version of Muriel, in my opinion, where you just sit on your carry and pull them out of fights. I think it's okay. I think that the kind of the slightly better way to play her, and again, I don't think she's fantastic, but I do think the slightly better way to play her is to combo up with someone like Rampage or Grux, and you build full tank, and you right-click them, and you pull them into fight, and you ult them. Because a Grux with 120% move speed, 120% attack speed, 20% Omnivamp, and an ultimate, like his own Grux ultimate, is literally the scariest thing I've ever seen. It's horrifying. You just auto-win fights as long as you're linked to a Grux while you're ulting. Really, really strong, right? So if you just play frontline, you throw your team into position, right? It's sort of, you force your team to initiate, right? As FaZe, you have 0 initiation. But if you have someone like a Grux who does have initiation, then as FaZe, you can pull that guy in. You can force him to initiate. So that's sort of how I'd recommend playing this character. I would try and get in voice comms with whoever your Grux player is, but I think that's really the main way to make Grux playable. Otherwise, FaZe has a pretty weak lane, comes online in the mid game. She's a decent character. And that is it. That's my tier list. I think this is pretty solid. I like going through it. I know that the B tier looks kind of stacked, but I think that a lot of stuff in the game is based right now about like what the enemy has. Like, and this is again, if you're playing scrims, right, that's where these counter picks really matter. Or if you really want to win your casual games, I guess, like that's where these counter picks matter. I think a lot of these characters here are just like, it does matter what your opponent has if you want these characters to be as strong as possible. Obviously, Pred has like 25 characters in the cast. I think you could just rip any character, any game, and if you're good, you can play well with them. I don't think that the game is severely unbalanced at the moment. So I do think you can play anything, but if you want to win, I think these characters you need to pick them into something specifically. The rest of these characters pretty much pickable every game. You can just one trick any of these top 5 and you're going to win like 80% of your games right now. So yeah, that's my tier list. Let me know what you guys think down below, but that is all I've got for you guys. So as always, leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoyed, but that's all I've got for you. So as always, I've been Pinzo. This video's donezo. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.